everyone, my name's John Meyer, Partner Solutions Architect for AWS. And this is another edition of the AWS Blogger. Why are we here today? What are we going to talk about? Well, guess what? I have another AWS guy on the phone here. All right, we're going to be talking about a cool, awesome virtual live event. And I don't want to spoil anything, so let's bring Don on. Don, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, happy to be here, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Don's a senior solutions architect for AWS, and as you can see from his shirt, now I don't have a DeepRacer shirt on. Normally I do for all of these. I am just straight up casual. So Don is a huge, I don't know. Don, explain your interest and your participation in the DeepRacer here.
Yeah. So I'm a member of what you would call the DeepRacer pit crew. It's not like a dedicated group. We all have sort of our main job at AWS. I'm a solutions architect. I work with customers and help them, solve business problems through technology and whatnot. But what we also do is, work with DeepRacer to put on DeepRacer events and use that as a way to teach machine learning and reinforcement learning to our customers and whatnot. And it is so much fun.
Yeah, so like Don said, he's part of the pit crew. So he has other jobs and responsibilities just like myself. So we're huge enthusiasts of DeepRacer. And the reason Don's here is we got to talk about something that Don, you invented this, right? You worked on this day and night. I remember some of the stories. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. My wife was not happy with me. It took me a couple of weeks to throw together, but I really wanted to put something together really quick. So I think it was totally worth it with the result that we got too.
All right. Well, let me introduce what we're going to talk about. So, as everybody knows, I really kind of founded the Underground DeepRacer with the help of David Smith, who is pretty much my co-host and cohort here. He's also doing a UK version of it. And I did physical races here in my basement on an underground track, and we host events. And there's a lot going on with that one, but we'll save that for another time. But Don, at the same time, was thinking outside the box, and how can we keep our customers engaged, and how can we, take it to the next level with DeepRacer during this current pandemic. Don came up with this idea, and this is what I love about AWS. You come up with an idea, you just run with it. You don't even really ask permissions. You just go with it. And, we're builders. So what Don built was AWS DR Virtual Live Event. And I'm not going to spoil it. Don, you want to start giving us some insight on it, and then we'll transition over to a demo?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you put it really well. I mean, back in April or so, when everything was starting to lock down, what was happening is we had a bunch of customer events, set up to do like live races, and this was always like a lot of fun and sort of the capstone for a lot of machine learning courses and whatnot that organizations were having their associates do, right? And what was happening is, we were all under lockdown, right? Nobody could actually do these events, and it sort of took away a lot of the engagement that happened with DeepRacer. And you saw a lot of people moving to the community races, which are absolutely great and whatnot. But you didn't have that same type of interactivity or liveliness that you did with a live event and whatnot, like a live in-person physical event. So what I was trying to do was make something virtual that brought back some of that sort of engagement and camaraderie and whatnot that was there. So, and we had something pretty close. If you look at what would people do is they would go on the community race, and they would have these almost like a watch party. Like they would watch, they would submit their jobs to the community race, and when it would finish, they would watch the videos from there. So what I want to do is actually move that to actually being live. Like you would actually do that live. And then, as many people would remember, there is a little bit of control that you can have of the car. It's not direct control because the model is racing the car, right? But you can sort of there is that sort of speed control that's not really telling the car what speed to go, but telling it the range it can make a decision inside. And I wanted to give that same type of control as well, because you can game the system that way, like on a straightaway or something like that. And you see that with the physical races. And so there's a little bit of art brought into it as well with the races. So I really wanted to capture that as well. So so really that's what I was trying to do, is basically, recreate the rules and experience of the physical race, but in a virtual environment. it worked out pretty well. It actually worked out better than I thought it would, and it's been amazing. We've done these for several dozen customers now, and it's always a lot of engagement. It's really interesting, actually, the different cultures of the organizations come out. Like some of them are very polite to each other, and other ones, they just get into trash talk and start, chewing each other out and stuff. And but they're all fun. It's all really good. And I would love to go through a demo with you, John.
Yeah, so Don, I think that you captured that one of the, I don't want to say the trash talking. We were on a customer event the other day, and Don was like, "Wow, you guys are so polite to each other." Like you were just talking about how nice they were, and oh, you're doing great and everything. It was like team karate and camaraderie, and it was. I loved it. Yeah, it definitely brings in a lot of that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, and just in general, I mean, it's a good way to sort of show how different AWS services work with each other. Actually, I mean, the fact that I was able to crank this out in 2-3 weeks at the most, and it's using a variety of things underneath, like Cognito for the login. You'll see that in the login screen, and the data is actually all stored with S3 and DynamoDB and whatnot. So it's also a great way of showing how you could throw something together very, very quickly. So that's been very successful in that way. But yeah, you want to get into a demo here?
Yeah, so Don, I brought that up on the screen here. I've got your demo ready to go. Some of the things you said were very interesting, and from a technical experience, you said you wanted to provide the same speed controls that you would do on a physical track, correct?
Yep, that was the goal.
So yeah, so think of me sitting here with the tablet running somebody's car and hitting the up and down arrow with the speed controls. You mentioned that the car can go within that range, or is it trying to always max up to that range?
No. So the car is making its own decision on its speed, and this is an important point. This is true with the physical car too, not just the virtual car. But
Yeah.
what'll happen is basically the car has been the reason there's a speed control at all on the tablet is because the car has been trained at a certain speed, a sort of expectation that you set when you did the training, and it's expecting that's the sort of the reaction of the car to match the speed that it's trained at, right? So think about it. So if a car is thinking it's going at 1 meter per second, and it wants to make a decision to make a turn, if it's actually going faster than that, it's going to make its turn too late. And if it's going slower than that, it's going to make its turn too soon. And so what you're actually, and because in the real world there's slop, there's cars have different coefficients of friction, and what's really important is actually the battery for the drive modules of the car actually does sort of drain down over roughly a 20-minute period or so of constant use. And you actually see the voltage level drop quite a bit over that time. And when you first start driving, the car is actually probably going to go too fast. And when you get to the end of that battery, it's going to be going too slow. So you could actually, what you're trying to do with that speed control is actually dial in to match the speed that the car was trained at. So it's actually making its decisions at the correct time. That's the purpose of that speed control on the tablet and whatnot. It's not to drive the car, it's just to sort of dial in to make it match what you trained at. But there's this thing that happens where you could actually game the system a little bit. And that's where, on a straightaway, when it's not making a turn decision, you could crank that way up so it actually starts going faster, right? And the trick is you have to actually slow it back down by the time it gets to the end of its straightaway, so it actually can make that turn. And that's where we see a lot of people who that's sort of the art of the driving it, right? Who basically need to get that timing just right. My advice to most racers is to don't try to game the system. What you want to do is basically get a good lap in, matching that time as best you can. And once you get a good lap in where you don't go off the track and all those other types of things, and you get a decent time that way, then just start inching it up a little bit from whatever time you have left. And you could do the exact same thing with the virtual live event here. And I actually made the control box look identical to the control box that's on the tablet, so you get that same experience.
I actually got a confession to make. When I'm here in the underground, I have a default strategy we've kind of built over the time. And the first minute is just let's get them around the racetrack. Let's get them a good lap time in there and just find their good speed, and then start inching it up a little bit. The last 30 seconds, I'm gaming the system. I am trying to. I am on my own Wi-Fi. I don't have all the noise and stuff
Yeah.
that you would have in a summit or anywhere else. So I'm speeding it up before that turn, or dropping it before that turn, speeding it up right into the turn. So by the time it gets that, it's running down the straightaway at full blast and lowering it. I have a blast doing this, trying to get the
Yeah.
best time for people. So I do it right in the beginning, but the last 30 seconds, I'm all out competitive.
Yeah, yeah, and you could do the same thing with the virtual live environment. It is really fun. Like you get somebody who's like, "Oh no, I got my 13-second time. I'm just cranking this baby up to 11 now."
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. All right, so we got the demo environment up here. Let's
yeah,
show a demo. Show us how this works. We're having a little bit of fun. Don asked for my model. By the way, I got a confession. I ain't got time to work on a model with all this DeepRacer stuff I'm doing, but I've taken the initiative in the next 3 weeks. My cohort, Mr. David, and I are going to start building some models together, at least one a week, and start working on it and be at least competitive to us.
cool. Okay, so so you can see, the website here. This is the basic, framework for it. This window right here, this is where the video will actually come in. Here is sort of the queue of who's racing now and who's going to come up next, and the leaderboard so far. So you can see, I have had several racers on this particular, you know, environment before, so it gives a good sense of the leaderboard here. But then what we'll do is we'll just click this login or sign up right here, and this will jump over to Cognito. And if you wanted to sign up, it's pretty straightforward, just username, email, and password. But I already have an account, so I'll just go ahead and log in here.
While you're doing
And
that, Don, I got to answer David's question here
yeah.
that he posted with regards to the speed control. Were you expecting racers to use the speed control as aggressively as they do when racing?
I mean, I was really trying to go for, as close to the physical environment, the physical race as I could. So it really doesn't surprise me that racers would try to be extremely aggressive with it. What is interesting though is latency is going to be different. So general latency, and this is just a good mental model to have in general, but it's basically 10 milliseconds per 1,000 miles. And the nice thing about this is, whereas standard DeepRacer is in US East 1, right? That's where it is. But this environment we could actually spin up in a variety of the AWS regions around the world. So this particular one I have running here is also in US East 1, but we could start this up in US West 2 or AP Southeast 1 or wherever to make it close to the customer, right? And what will happen is that latency becomes an issue, the further you are from where the race is, and so it's a little bit harder to get aggressive there. And unfortunately, there's no real way around the speed of light, So that's the best we could do. Now, it's fairly good. I mean, it's actually really interesting how even at customer sites and whatnot, what's very common at customer sites is the wireless access points are not necessarily designed for the crowd that's gathering around the DeepRacer activities, right? So this is very often why AWS people will bring their own Wi-Fi for these events and whatnot. But even at a summit, just think about how many people are at a summit. There's literally thousands of people, and each one of them have a cell phone and a laptop that's on Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi spectrum gets quite full, and we work really, really hard to make the Wi-Fi work well in the DeepRacer area, and we've gotten pretty good at it actually. But there is still some variable latency in there, just because there's only so much spectrum available in the radio frequency waves, right? So the RF spectrum. So so there's latency there, even in a physical real world event, but there's also latency here, and it does make it a little bit harder to get super aggressive. So that was really long-winded, but hopefully got to David's answer.
Jump into David's. At some point, do you expect to remove the speed control and let the car make all the decisions? And while you're answering that, you can start the race or jump into the thing. So whatever works out.
Yeah. So not really. I haven't really planned on removing the speed control. I would suggest that once you've what you'll find is if you make the speed too high, it'll just start going off the track. It's making it's not able to turn that. So then you basically find that and then turn it down 1 or 2 notches and then just let it go. So that's a pretty good strategy right there.
I've had the speed all the way up, and I've got some marks in my wall because of it. So
yeah,
I'm not sure I can expense some drywall. So
yeah. Fortunately, with the virtual environment, there's no denting the walls or anything there, but it is.
I got an idea. Wait. You should turn damage control. You should have one that says damage control on or off.
Yeah, that'd be really.
I'm thinking gaming here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have seen it in the real world physical races where like the wheels get damaged and stuff like that, and it's always like turning to the right and things like that. That'd be really interesting to build in here, but unfortunately not part of the experience as designed thus far.
Oh, you know what? You should have a gamer experience and a competitive experience. No, it's just all right. I know we're digressing. Let's get into our virtual race here. All right, so Don got it set up. He's logged in. Let Don tell us what's next.
Yeah, so we're going to upload a model. So this is the same. You do your training the same that you do with a standard DeepRacer or anything. So you're in the AWS console, you're training, you're doing your reward function. All that is the same. And then what you're going to do is you're going to download the model just like you're going to download it for a car. So you see I have lots of examples here, but they all end with tar.gz. It's actually somewhat interesting to extract that and see what's inside. But I'm going to choose this simple2.tar.gz, which is not my fastest model, but it is very consistent. So I like this one a lot. I'm going to open that and upload it. This is actually just doing a standard S3 multi-part upload using the Cognito credentials. So it shows how easy it is to do web-based uploads with S3 and whatnot. But upload was successful. It's about 20 megs, so it didn't take too long to upload. And now it's processing. That will take probably about 45 seconds or something like that. But as soon as it says it's done processing, you'll see it pop in my list there. And then I'm going to, so yep, you saw how now it says processed. And now simple 2 shows up here in my list. I had already these simple 2-3 and -5 there from before. I'll choose this simple 2, and then I will just queue for the race. So this is basically getting in line. And I did make the queue act just like a sort of a traditional physical summit where, the moment you finish racing, you could walk around and get right back at the end of the line and keep going, right? So you could do that as much as you want. I'm probably going to be doing some modifications for better queue control just for some customers and whatnot, but for now it actually works quite well. So you see I've queued it, and what's going to happen is within 10 to 20 seconds, somewhere in there, it should actually start up. Yeah, so it'll probably be in the next 10 or 20 seconds here. What'll happen
why
is
that's starting up? Can I ask you a question here? You've got it's going. I'm going to let you talk about how it's going. Then I'll ask.
Yeah. So you can see the RoboMaker environment is started up and the car is there. It has loaded my model in memory now, and here in just a second, it's going to fire off and start. And when this clock starts, it'll start going. And there we go. So you can see it's making its way around pretty good. It's a little pokey. It's like I said, it's not the fastest model here. And what I'm going to do is just up that speed just a little bit. That 50% on the speed sort of matches with what it's doing what the model wants to do exactly there. There is no slop in the virtual environment, no weird coefficient of friction that you would get in a real world. So 50% is always going to be sort of exactly what you want. But you could basically go up to twice that speed if you crank it up to 100, or down to 0 for the other way. But this is making its way around pretty good. So I did emulate the actual regular summit rules in this one. So you could see what's happening is it could go off the track once it goes off the track, it is then picked up and put back on the track. So your colleague David Smith is sort of famous as a track boss, right? And that is happening virtually. There's no track boss, but it's basically doing the boss of the
So
same
wait
job.
a second. You just replaced David Smith in the virtual environment. I'm not sure that's possible.
Yeah, well, we don't get as many spectacular, you know, the slides and the swings and all the fancy moves and everything, which is unfortunate. But
or the rollover he did, which is very, I think is well known from reInvent. The
yeah,
video is out there. I show it whenever I get a chance. So
yeah, I think I might have taken one of those videos. Right, so you can see it comes off the track here and goes back on, and you're allowed to go off the track up to 3 times on a particular lap. If you go off a 4th time, you are reset back at the start line. That lap is over, and you start a new lap. And then you basically have 3 minutes to get as many laps in as you can, and that's the way it works. And then it goes on to the next racer. You know, we can tweak the rules for specific, you know, engagements.
you got my question. I was going to say customization here. You know, I want to customize this. If I'm like, no. I want to give them more time, less resets, more resets, less time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are actually just little variables set up in the background, and those are very easy to change. So, you know, the number of minutes per racer, you could adjust that. It is on a minute resolution, so you can't do 2.5 minutes. You have to do 2 or 3. But then the number of resets, you could set that to any number you want, other than 0, or I guess any number greater than 0. You know, and you could make it effectively unlimited. I mean, you could basically set it up to like 10,000 or something like that, that you would never hit inside of your 3-minute window, right? So so that's quite adjustable. If you wanted to change it where, like, you know, the car can't go off the track, like it just bounces off like a bowling ball with bumpers or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, that would take a little bit more work. We'd have to actually recode some stuff, but you know, it'd be interesting to do that maybe for kids leagues or something like that. I don't know.
I was thinking bowling. You put up the bumpers for those newbies that are on there ready to go.
Yeah, and oh yeah,
I need those. You'll have to add those for me to start.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone noticed because my 3 minutes were up, so the race ended actually, and I could queue for another one here if we just want to keep watching it, but
yeah, go ahead, queue for another one.
Yeah, but what will happen is at the end of your 3-minute time, it'll actually let you finish that lap. So you could actually get more than 3 minutes. It's not like it's just cut off, which is the same thing that happens in the physical races as well. What's really nice here is once you have the leaderboard, you can actually click on your entry here, and it opens up a new tab, and you can actually see the videos from those runs and your results, you know,
nice.
for each race.
So you can see your best lap or the lap that didn't complete the most percentage, and you can see, this is pretty good. This is good information.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see here my best time was 23.5 seconds, which was actually done on race 1, you know, and I've done 6 of them so far in this particular, since I've reset this environment. And it was lap 5 of race 1. So if we actually skip forward over to lap 5, and you can see the numbers up here. So this is just finishing up lap 4. And we'll see lap 5 start up here in just a second. Yeah, right there, starting lap 5. And we'll just watch it take exactly 23 seconds to get around. You lose 2 seconds every time you go off the track, by the way. That's sort of the assumption of how long it takes David Smith to chase down your car and put it back on the track.
Have we timed that? David, I know you're listening. Have we timed how long it takes you to move with inside the barriers to put it back onto the track? I think Don took some of those statistics from reInvent and your other.
Yeah. So yeah, you could, and then what's really nice is, you know, for racers and whatnot, you can actually right click and save your video and actually keep your video if you wanted to. It's just a standard MP4 video that you could keep forever. And you will see, I'm logged in as an admin here, so most people won't have this interface, but you could see I could actually invalidate laps or even delete the racer entirely. So what'll happen every so often is something will like a car is just cranked up way too fast, and it actually skips it like basically doesn't go around the loop. It actually skips over to the other side or something like that. And so we'll have to invalidate that lap, which is actually happens in the physical environment, physical races all the time too. So we have that mechanism. Just a little bit about the track itself, actually, because some people might be noticing it's very, very similar to the reInvent 2018 track design, but it's not identical. There's a couple things here. Is the curve is just slightly different. It's extremely similar, but just slightly smooth, slightly differently, and the textures are different. So you can notice I actually have the grassy texture instead of that flat green that's in the reInvent 2018. And the walls I think are just a slight different color. The colors don't really matter actually, because the first thing that happens in the DeepRacer's neural network is everything is converted to 8-bit grayscale. A lot of people don't know that, but it's actually the car is seeing in black and white, which I'm sorry, grayscale, which is very common in machine learning. Machine vision applications. Just if you think about it, color is an RGB with 8 bits for each, so it's 24 bits of color. You might have seen that when you're saving JPEGs in certain applications. You see 24-bit color or 32-bit color or something. Whereas 8-bit grayscale is from white to black with gray in between of 0 through 255, right? So it's basically a cube root difference in the amount of math involved. So most machine vision thinks in grayscale, and that's true of like Ring doorbells and Tesla cars and all kinds of things, right? So like that's very common, and the same thing's true with DeepRacer here. But anyway, back to the point.
No. I wasn't interrupting you, because here I am. I want to get a pen and paper out and take some notes, even though we're live or whatever it is. But I'm like, I told everybody, you're going to get a lesson here. And I really want, I'm glad it's recorded. Let's just put it that way. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. And then
so it doesn't matter on the going from color to grayscale. It's just simplifying it. Less math, I guess, to do, or I mean, help me understand.
Yeah. So, well, it's the range of numbers is much smaller. So instead of between 0 and 2 to the 8th, which is 256, I guess, yeah. So 256 minus 1, 255. It's 24-bit color or 3 red, green, and blue values would be 0 to 2 to the power of 24, whatever that is. It's a big number, 32,000 maybe. I forget, but but just imagine the amount of it's cubing the amount of math that's actually involved, if not more than that involved. So training takes a lot longer if you're training against color. So and time, more training time means more compute time, which means greater cost to do training. For frankly, not a lot of benefit. You can make decisions on grayscale, quite well. So that's why it's so common with machine learning. But back to the track, you can see I did also add this finish line right here, which is super helpful for races that the original track did not have. But the reason why I chose a different track the reason I chose a different track from the standard reInvent 2018 is because I was trying to avoid what will happen in the real world is people will overtrain their model. They find out, hey, we're going to be racing in this track, and then they train their model to race on just that track. And what happens, and this is true of most machine learning problems, is you could actually overtrain your model for just the training set. And if you train on just one track, basically your model might be able to race beautifully on that track, but you haven't actually solved the actual machine learning problem. A good model should be able to take the features of the road, like the sidelines and the center lines, and make its decisions based on that, and then run on any track. So you should be able to pick up that model and run it on the bow tie track or the oval track or the Kumo track, or any one of the tracks that's available, and it should be able to run just fine. But what happens is people will overtrain on one one track. And then what ends up happening is the model might actually not learn to react to the features of the road. It will actually learn to react to like the shape of the grass in the background or the angle the wall makes,
Oh,
and it's something like that. And it'll be like, hey, when the wall, I'm just picking this out, if the wall has this 90, well, not 90, but 100-degree angle like this in the distance, that's when I need to know I go straight. It hasn't actually looked at the road, it's just sort of seeing, hey, so it only works on that track, right? So for that reason, I wanted to have something that
wow.
I wanted to have
I
something.
didn't. You just blew my mind on that. On why overtraining your model. I mean, that was like the simplest explanation. Yet I've heard so many like you shouldn't overtrain it, or you can overtrain it, and that's I don't know. I'm blown away at that.
Yeah. But basically, I wanted to have a track that that's shorter. The reInvent 2018 track is pretty short. It's a known design. It's good. It's what a lot of the physical races are doing, because it's somewhat of a smaller track, so it's still a large track. So it's bigger than a conference room. But if you look at like the 2019 reInvent design, that's hard to even fit in like the common areas or the cafeterias at some of our customers, right? So the reInvent 2018 track is still really, really commonly used, but I didn't want
Or
to have it
in
like,
my basement.
yeah, exactly. But I didn't want it to be identical, just because it is virtual and people would overtrain for that model. You have less of an issue of overtraining when it's a physical environment, because you do have shadows and different textures and things like that, right? And it's actually worked really, really well. I mean, people will make their models, and if they overtrain it, it doesn't work quite the right way. And but if they have a good model that actually could pick out the features of the road, then it works quite well, just as well as it should work on a physical track. So it's been really successful this way, and that's actually pretty easy to change. We could actually in the virtual live event. I made this one custom for the virtual live event, but we can change it. You could basically pick any one of the tracks that's available through in the standard DeepRacer console, and actually run a virtual live environment against those tracks as well.
So that was going to be my question. You can actually pick your track and run it for the virtual for in the virtual live environment here, or is it only based off the 2018? So okay, so I guess that leads me to my question and a bunch of questions. If I'm watching this, or down the road I'm watching this, somebody's watching this thing out of our 5 viewers, uh, how do I get this? How do I get this set up? What if I want to run one of these? You know what? I think this is awesome. I think this solves a huge need of not being able to physically go anywhere or to get scheduled in the underground. How do we go ahead and how does one get started?
Yeah, so the best way is to get a hold of your AWS account team. The environment does need to be instantiated by an AWS team member. Best way is to get a hold of your account team if you have an account manager or a solutions architect or something like that. If you don't know that person or whatnot, I would suggest just going to aws.amazon.com and choosing the contact us option. That's probably a good way of getting a hold of your account manager and really developing that relationship in the first place. But it's actually fairly low lift for a solution architect, for your solution architect to get one of these going for you. Like we talked about earlier, I mean, we've had a couple dozen organizations, put these on these events to great success. And the best way is just to get started with your solution architect or your TAM, technical account manager, or your account manager, and they would reach out to the DeepRacer pit crew internally, and we get it organized from there.
Awesome. So once I get this set up, I'm ready to go. Spin this up. I'm ready to get started with this. Is really my thing. There's a bunch of workshops that can be done ahead of time, obviously, to get you prepared for the virtual, to get your model in there. one of the things that is really kind of, I guess, interesting to me is, do I have the support from like yourself or somebody else that wants to run these to help me run it for not only myself internally? So say I'm a partner and I want to run it for my company, or I want to run it for my customers. Is that all? Is there help with me to do it? Because I don't even know the first thing to get started. I do, but I'm just on the other end.
Yeah, well, like I was saying, you really would need to work through your AWS account team for the best thing there. This is not a supported AWS service. This is not, part of the, terms and conditions or anything like that. It is best effort, for me. I've helped out lots of customers this way for a lot of success and whatnot, but, it's not an official service or anything like that, if that's your question.
I guess what Don's trying to say is Don does not scale. His wife would not like that one. Um, so, but no, this is really, really cool. I got some additional ones. Are there any limitations here? I want to set this up in my account. So should I be concerned? Is it set up in my account? Any costs associated with it? Or are there any limitations?
No. So this would be this does need to be run by an AWS person. So it would be running in their account. So there's no cost to the customer in this case.
Yes.
We don't want to we want to be frugal and whatnot. So we're not going to leave it running for weeks on end or something inside of our accounts. But it's quite standard to have these running all day for a customer event or something like that.
Nice. That's really good. All right, so let's talk about customizations here. And some of the things you said that I can customize the track. Is that it need to be done by you, or is there an admin where I can select a track that I want to run on, or how is that handled?
Yeah. So modifying the track is it's not a it's a little involved, and it's actually built into part of the DeepRacer sim map that's loaded into RoboMaker. So creating the track itself, you could basically make one using a 3D modeler like Blender or Maya or SketchUp or something like that if you really wanted to. What you also have to do is actually create the track waypoints that's associated with it, and so it's not something trivial to do, but it's not impossible either. What's more common is for taking an existing track and adding a logo or something like that. That's a little bit easier, right? And then what'll happen is we'll need to package that up into the sim app and make that part of the virtual live event. That is fairly involved. We would need to plan that out weeks in advance and whatnot. Unlike adjusting the number of times you could go off the track and the length of the lap or something, that's very easy to change. Anything else, like same thing for textures. So like if we want to do like a custom texture on the car itself or something like that.
I was going to ask that. Can we do customized shells?
Yeah. You know what? It's literally just a 3D model. So I think you can. I can't say I've ever actually tried. But what you actually see is the 3D model itself. We could adjust the color of it, and you see that right now when you go into the garage in DeepRacer.
And select it, yeah.
Yeah. So you're just changing the shading on the 3D model there. Yeah. But adding a texture should not be a huge lift. It would involve somebody knowing their way around RoboMaker and 3D modeling, but should be doable.
Don, you want to kick off another one here, and we'll kind of round things up in the last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
We've kind of answered most of the questions here, obviously, from our participants. So let's see. Let's kick off another one. We have the traditional leaderboard sitting up here. I think that's really awesome, really great. I got a question. Is this shareable, just the leaderboard? So say I want to post the leaderboard up on a screen somewhere and not just the race, just the leaderboard. Is that doable? Or a feature request?
Yeah, well, it might be a bit of a feature request. I mean, if we actually, let me just show you what we got here.
By the way, this is unscripted, folks. I had 5 questions for Don. We're just going along on some of the cool stuff that Don has up.
So you can see the leaderboard is just written out as its own file. What's missing here is the CSS to actually give it the pretty colors and everything like that. So it would not be a heavy lift to make this an independent leaderboard, separate from the regular experience.
I
But
know a
it
guy. I
yeah
know a guy that could do that. So
yeah. Righto. So this is in queue, so it should start up here any second here.
why that's in queue and it's starting up there. Some of the things we've seen is say you're hosting a participant, right? Yeah, somebody's out there racing and they want to race again right away. Don, I've heard you mention in our one customer call and actually view it that some people are just throwing themselves in the queue again and again. Is there any limitation on how many times I could go in the queue? Will it race other racers before me or?
So right now, the way it's written is the moment you are out of the queue, you could go right back into the queue. You can only be in the queue once.
Okay.
But you know, the reason I wrote it that way was again, my original goal here was to simulate the physical events where when someone's done racing, if they wanted to go back and get at the end of the line and wait
Yep.
to go, that's how it works, right? But probably one of my you know, future releases of this will be better queue control because it's just not working for some customers. It's really interesting as some customers, people are very polite. You know, it is like they don't requeue themselves when until they know that all of their colleagues have had a chance to go and all that kind of stuff. But
And
other
some
ones,
are very competitive.
the other ones don't care. They just start requeuing, and I've had to literally go into the DynamoDB table and delete people from the queue if they keep on you know, jumping in and stuff. And typically that's only a problem when you know, somebody's not paying attention, like and they didn't queue, and then a bunch of people got behind them, you know, or got in front of
Okay.
them, you know, for their first turn or something like that. So it's not normally a problem, but it's happened enough times now that I'm going to have to make some sort of mechanism for that. And it's not really hard. It's just a little bit of stamping out the license plates to put in that kind of queue control, right?
Question for you, why this is going. What are the plans for Evo or head to head?
Yeah. So what's interesting is it can actually load the model for an Evo or head-to-head. That actually took some work to do. That was a bit of a challenge, but you could actually load the Evo or head-to-head model. You can actually see the car here does have the Evo sensor, the
Yeah,
lidar
I see
sensor
the
on top.
lidars on the top, right?
Yeah, and the reason I did that is because you know, while the environment's booting up and before it actually loads your model into memory, the sensors have to be in place. So I literally have to have every sensor loaded on the car, even if they're not used, which is why that lidar is showing up there. And but you know, conceptually, I don't really have any plans to do a head-to-head or Evo type thing, but conceptually, this environment would work with it just fine. What we'd have to do is just you know, basically, you know, load two racers at once and two models at once, and then read the control stream from two locations at once, which wouldn't be that hard, really. What I'd be a little bit afraid of is that, you know, the logistics are much easier in person, right? Because you got both people there and you hand them both their tablets and you know they're there. But when you have somebody like queued up or something like that, you would basically say, you know, are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, and then go from there. So that'll take a little bit of thought exercise, but conceptually, you know, it's not a hard lift in order to do something like that. It'd be if we have if a lot of people are wanting something like that, it'd be interesting. The you know, Evo itself, it doesn't really make sense, I guess, maybe unless you had the same exact obstacles for every single
I'm
every.
thinking throw some obstacles in there, some things to see how well it functions. You know, maybe a 3D model simulator of David on the track, just trying to
Yeah,
avoid them.
yeah, that'd be cute, actually. You know, that's actually really, that'd be super doable. All you would have to do is you just make a custom track with the 3D models on it, and there's actually no additional lift. If it was just an obstacle course and the best time through the obstacle course, that there's no extra coding. It's just literally making the track with the obstacles on it. If you get into head-to-head, that's when you start needing to do dual controls and dual streams and dual everything else, right?
Yeah, I think the difficult part was getting the 3D of David. So,
Yeah, well, David, he has a 3D model of himself. I'm sure he's that kind of
uh,
guy, right?
yeah, we put him around during this time. We made one specifically of him and placed them at different various parts. So it's not where's Waldo, it's where's David.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
awesome. So David's commenting here, which is awesome. So Don, I mean, I this is really awesome. From when I saw this, when was it? Back in June, I think it was June or something around that. When you provided a demo to all of us SAs, and it was just completely mind blowing. And now that I'm getting engaged a lot more with the virtual and helping out and supporting some of the customer stuff, is there anything else out of this entire thing that you want to share with everybody that you haven't already talked about? Are there any cool features or next steps? Whatever, floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I think I've really talked through just about everything. I'm really proud of it. It's actually turned out to be a lot more popular than I thought it would be, to be very honest. And there's some talk about building it into the official service, but that's just talk at this point. And well, what I am going to be doing for my main customer actually is modifying this where it's not just a straight leaderboard. We're actually going to make it into a Sweet 16 bracket where we have like 16 finalists,
Oh, I like that.
and then it basically feeds down to you have two of them race, and then the best of those two for that round, goes on to the next round and everything.
Okay, so it'll call up the next person, and then it'll say, "Okay, you're next, and you're next," and it will actually show the bracket. I'm thinking
Yeah.
like March Madness style here, man.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're going for. And that's going to be super cool because even people who didn't make it into the final 16, like, some people have teams of 300, some organizations have like 300 people involved in their leagues and whatnot. And if you don't make it to the final 16, you just sort of check out, right? But
Yeah.
but imagine if there's like a bracket and you could basically, predict, oh, I think this person's going to make it all the way and all that kind of stuff. And you could get really engaged. Even if you aren't into DeepRacer itself, you could still get into the competition of DeepRacer.
Yeah.
So I'm super looking forward to that coming out. And I might actually be building something into that where I actually have the two competitors running in parallel. Like, they have their own controls and their own single race, but then
Okay.
but their 3 minutes are happening at the same time. So at the end of those 3 minutes, we know who goes to the next round.
So I can see, I can envision this. It's like, okay, they're running, racer one's running, racers two running. They can't see each other things, what's going on. But when they're done, whoever
Yeah.
the winner is gets on moved on to that bracket. So it's like, oh my God, I got to try my hardest. I can't tell. That's actually really good and competitive.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm probably I'm gonna have to have that ready sometime in mid to late September. So not too far off now. So I'm super looking forward to that.
David would like to know, is this going to be on DraftKings or Vegas for betting?
No plans at this time. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? You can make it out of anything. This is super awesome. So, what Don has built with just your regular racing the model and not seeing it blows it out of the water here. In fact, I think he did much better job than I did in the physical underground here, because the time that he took to build this by himself and took the initiative, it is just completely awesome, Don. Everybody that I talked to loves the work you did on this, and I don't even have the words for it. So great job all around.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Really appreciate that. This is. I'm very proud of this. It was a lot of work, and but very excited by how many people are using it, and there's people across the world who asked for the code, and they're making their own little tweaks and modifications and all
So
that
it's
kind of
open
stuff.
sourced internally.
Well, it's inside of our internal repository.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's interesting, what I like about this is it's actually all written in pure, the web interface is all written in pure JavaScript. There's no extra like jQuery or Angular or anything else like that, right? So it's super easy for other people to pick up. But what's also really interesting is everyone has their favorite little framework that they basically layer onto it afterwards. So it's really interesting to see what people are throwing onto it afterwards.
That's awesome. So if you are interested in hosting a virtual environment here, virtual live environment, what was it? DeepRacer VLE,
Yep.
Don's calling it. So guess what? Contact your AWS rep, your AWS SA. We get you in touch with Don or the team, the pit crew. The entire pit crew knows about this and how we can get this rolling for you. Specifically to your environment, I think there's some cool things that are coming out of this. I think customization of the shell would be really fun, by the way, because I actually had one of our internal customers that was customized specific shells for the classic DeepRacer ones. I wanted to see those. So that, I mean, people get all out with this, not just stickers, but customize them. So this is really cool. Definitely get in touch with that. There's a fun things coming up, and this is completely scalable where I am not for underground. So Don has built something that will conform to everybody. Now we are scaling underground globally, but not as fast as Don is doing with this virtual environment. So congrats to you, Don. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it, John. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So, Don, thank you for joining me on this one. We had no set time limit. It goes where it goes so we can get everybody their information and have fun doing this. Don, I hope you had a good time showing it off. I welcome you the next time for upgrades, enhancements, the next feature releases. We can do a quick 15-minute segment. Hey, do you remember this one? Here's the next few ones for it. So, Don, thank you for taking the time out to join me. And I hope from this video, all 5 viewers share it out and it goes global or something.
Cool. All right. Well, really appreciate it, John. And thanks to all the viewers.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Join us next time. I've got a couple more things coming up. Take a look at my YouTube channel for their next events that we're doing. I want to thank David, who has been my chat buddy here during this conversation and keeping the questions along. Don for his time, and everybody at AWS and their DeepRacer pit crew for trying to find out the next thing during this pandemic to keep customers rolling with DeepRacer. So thank you, Don, once again. Everybody have a good one.